Well, no one took him seriously when he declared himself in the running for the Republican nomination for president. But weeks later, he's not only the outright frontrunner in the polls, he's defiantly on the cover of this week's Time magazine despite the criticism for his outlandish remarks. Stephen Schmidt is a seasoned Republican strategist. He worked for George W. Bush's 2004 campaign and is an NBC political commentator for the current campaign. We spoke to him about Trump's chances.
He's the Republican frontrunner. He is ahead by 2-1 against his next closest competitor. But what's interesting about the race right now is the top three candidates are all candidates who have never held elective office. Donald Trump in the lead, but also Dr. Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon, and Carly Fiorina, the former CEO of Hewlett-Packard. And what you see in the Republican Party right now is 45% of Republican voters in open rebellion against the political establishment of the country, against the leadership of the Republican Party. And Trump's candidacy is manifesting the complete and total utter contempt that millions of Americans feel towards the political establishment in Washington, D.C. And the things he is saying are things that millions of people across America are screaming at their television sets every night in a time where trust has collapsed in institutions and the American people don't have faith that the system is on the level anymore.
So tell us about what's driving that disenchantment, because it's one thing to be anti the political establishment, but it's another to be anti-immigrant, because the country is built on immigrants. Is it speaking to the fact that people are feeling disenfranchised right now?
We live in the United States today in a time of turbulence. If you look at Donald Trump's supporters, they're non-college educated, blue collar, part of the American middle class that has been dislocated by globalization.
So their jobs have been threatened.
The disassembling of the manufacturing industries in America, those jobs moving to Asia. No real wage growth in 30 years while Wall Street is prospering. And so when you have times of rapid change, culturally and economically, it gives rise to resentment and to grievance. And Donald Trump is manifesting this in his message. There's a long history of American populism, and you see this playing out right now. It's an angry message, but it's resonating with people who believe the political class of the country has sold them out.
Yeah, and they don't have a voice left. But right at the very beginning, when he was saying he's crazy, making crazy statements, people thought, we can't take this seriously. He will fall away. He will implode. Nothing but the opposite seems to be happening. Could he likely get the Republican nomination?
I don't think it's likely that he'll get the Republican nomination, but I certainly can't sit here today, and nobody in the States could sit here and say that Donald Trump is going to fall apart and he won't win. This is not a difficult business to understand. The person who gets the most votes wins. And right now, if the election were tomorrow, Donald Trump would be well on his way to winning the early primary states. There's a long way to go before Republicans start to caucus in Iowa and a vote in New Hampshire in late January and early February. And it's always been the case that Republican voters, Democratic voters, don't give away their franchise to make a protest vote. They vote for the candidate they think is most electable against the other party's candidate.
So then let's look at the Democrat side of things. Hillary Clinton, that looked like the out-and-out front-runner that no one could touch her, falling away dramatically in the polls.
One of the most undertold stories in American politics is the collapse in Hillary Clinton's poll numbers from the day she left the office of Secretary of State.
Much admired in that position.
The most ecumenically admired public figure in the United States by both Republicans and Democrats. Total collapse of her numbers, particularly with regard to her personal virtues, her trust, her character. She's now embroiled in a scandal with regard to her handling of classified information. There is a criminal inquiry that is open. And interestingly now, we have trial balloons being floated. Will Vice President Biden run? Will former Vice President Al Gore potentially run? Will Secretary of State John Kerry run? No one is challenging Hillary Clinton right now because they believe she was invincible. But as she continues to weaken, serious Democrats are starting to take a second look at this race. So we could see a very volatile fall for the Democrats as well.
If you were a betting man and you've had such experience in this, who do you think the final two are going to be?
Look, if I had a guess right now, I think on the Republican side, Jeb Bush has all the resources necessary to wage a long campaign. The young senator from Florida, Marco Rubio, the Ohio governor, John Kasich. Marco Rubio and John Kasich are gaining support. And one thing that's important to mention is once the country has made generational change in its leadership, we had two baby boomer presidents, George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, Barack Obama elected to the presidency at the age of 46. The country not one time ever has turned back to the previous generation for leadership after it's made that change. That bodes well for Marco Rubio in this race, who might be the best communicator in the field. And one of the things that's clear as you look at Donald Trump's angry message, Marco Rubio's message is hopeful and it's optimistic. And in the United States, and I think this is true for any center-right party anywhere in the world, when we divorce optimism from conservatism, the right-of-center party tends not to do very well. And I think we see in Marco Rubio a candidate that has all the capacity to do well in this race.
Fascinating to watch. Thanks so much for your insight, Steve. Good to talk.
Great to be with you.